All right. This is so. Let's check in on maximum boot. Because if shoddy wasn't enough for you, we got to check in on what maximum boot wants. We'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. This is Max Boot writing in the Washington Post. In its righteous fury, America has sometimes overreached. Don't make that mistake in Ukraine. It begins. Beware the fury of an aroused democracy, Dwight D. Eisenhower wrote at the beginning of World War II. His warning was apt. The United States would mobilize to defeat both Germany and Japan. But in later years, that same warlike impulse would lead us into misbegotten conflicts in Vietnam and Iraq. The fury of an aroused democracy needs to be carefully channeled and controlled, lest it draw America into wars that we don't need and can't win. God, an aroused democracy. I just you can tell how aroused these people are right now. They're fully engorged at the prospect of World War III.
They're terrified that they're going to get left just with blue balls,
just edging.
His top hat blew off his head and spun around.
He continues, that is a warning worth keeping in mind today as Americans unite in righteous anger at Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. The official U.S. response, arming Ukraine and sanctioning Russia, has been effective, but many want to go further. There are increasingly loud demands, including from Ukrainian President Zelensky, for the establishment of a no-fly zone. There have even been calls for assassinating Russian dictator Vladimir Putin from those geopolitical savants, Sean Hannity and Lindsey Graham. Those are all bad ideas that will be likely to backfire. U.S. attempts to overthrow or kill foreign leaders during the Cold War seldom achieved the results we were aiming for. When such plots failed, as with Fidel Castro, they resulted in embarrassment for the United States and a dangerous escalation of tensions. The Cuban Missile Crisis was triggered in part by a Soviet desire to safeguard its Caribbean client from being ousted by the Kennedy administration. Former New York Times reporter Philip Shannon even argued in his book A Cruel and Shocking Act that Cuban agents in Mexico City encouraged Lee Harvey Oswald to murder John F. Kennedy because they knew JFK was trying to kill Castro. Yeah, the old hands off of Cuba. Hands off of Cuba.
I just love the idea that he's just sitting there in Mexico City. You know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to kill Kennedy. And then the Cuban guy's like, "Don't be a pussy." And he's like, "Fine, I'll do it."
I love this theory because it's like it presupposes that the Cuban agents were like, "Who's the best guy we have?" Lee Harvey Oswald.
Hey, he was a former Marine. You know,
got bag his drawers.
But yeah, I'm loving it. It's like when Oswald was coming back from defecting to the Soviet Union, they're like, so why do you want to come back to America? I'm hoping to kill the president on behalf of Fidel Castro. So he goes here. The only thing worse than U.S. plots that failed were those that succeeded. In the Dominican Republic and Soviet Vietnam, the United States backed coup plotters who killed Presidents Rafael Trujillo in 1961 and Diem in 1963, resulting in instability that eventually drew in U.S. troops. Yeah, it resulted in instability. That's what drew in the U.S. troops. They drew them in. You know, you catch more flies with instability than you do with like a rapacious need for global markets and client states. So it goes here. What in the historical record gives anyone any confidence that the U.S. government could either succeed in killing Putin or in managing the fallout? Loose talk of assassinating the Russian tyrant, especially from a U.S. senator, sacrifices America's moral high ground and undermines our strategy. I mean, once again, these guys, the fact that they're just assuming, as read, that America has any moral high ground here or strategy to begin with is pretty. I mean, I guess we do have the strategy, but these people just take as read that everyone in the world feels the same way about America that they do, which is that we have the moral high ground. And like we said, if we do whoopsies, then it wasn't intentional. It was just good intentions that led to bad outcomes. So he goes here, we need to make clear to Putin that he is better off withdrawing from Ukraine than fighting to the death. Trying to kill him won't work and doesn't help. For the same reason, now is not the time for war crimes prosecutions of Putin. Save him an off-ramp. A no-fly zone is another extraordinarily dangerous idea. Let's be clear about what this entails. U.S. aircraft firing on Russian aircraft, radars and surface-to-air missile sites. The Russians would fire back. There would be casualties on both sides, and war fever could easily get out of control. Are we really prepared to go to a war with a nuclear-armed state? The United States wisely resisted that temptation during the Cold War, even when it meant standing by and watching Russian tanks snuff out rebellions in Hungary in 1956 and Czechoslovakia in 1968. The same calculus applies today. So, this is slightly less than maximum boot here. So he's saying, a no-fly zone.
Moderate.
this is a moderate amount of boot, and he's saying,
Yeah,
you know,
alternative minimum boot.
See, that means he's being reasonable. That's the thing, is that this is proof now because he's not calling for World War III. He's being reasonable, and you have to listen
and
to him.
and he's also saying U.S. interventions in the Dominican Republic and Vietnam were also those are mistakes. Those are baddies.
Look,
Those are
literally
whoopsies.
every one we ever do is a mistake, but that doesn't mean the next
Yeah.
one will be, okay?
Okay, so like we're saying, like, is this moderate maximum boot? Is that you? You're saying like we don't want to risk a nuclear conflict with a state like Russia? Okay, but let's say what can we do? So he goes here, blah blah blah, and he goes, and no, we wouldn't be saved by former President Donald Trump's childish suggestion to paint F-22s with Chinese flags.
That
You know what?
was
Honestly,
was
let's do it. Let's give it a shot, huh?
he missed a calling, not being more of a neocon. I mean, he governed as one for the most part in foreign policy, but he has a Team B style creativity and whimsy that was missing from the neoconservative movement since the
It's true.
70s.
He got it from watching the Sum of All Fears. Just scrolling, he saw it on TNT, and the thing where they're like, oh, they do a false flag to get Russia and America to blow each other up. I'm like, hell yeah, oh, that's an idea.
See, I mean, I think painting the F-22s with Chinese flags. I mean, that would pretty good, pretty good false flag. But the thing is, they're still shaped like F-22s. So
That's a
on
problem. Yeah,
radar, I think they would, I mean, well, I know they're supposed to be, like not show up on radar. They're supposed to be stealth fighters. Is that what the F-22 is? I think so, right?
I don't
But
know. It can't fly in the rain. That's all I know.
The F-35 can't fly in the rain. The F-22 is like, I'm pretty sure like a Texas hailstorm would probably, flush it down the toilet, but it is less of a boondoggle than the 35.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the F-35 is the real winner.
But
Yeah.
the flags
Fine
are only
gift.
going so far. You've got to have the pilots themselves be communicating over radio in like an Andy Rooney style Chinese caricature,
Yeah.
and then if they get shot down, they can just Chinese stereotypes, and people will be like, "Goddamn these these perfidious Chinese for bombing Russia." So it goes here. But okay, so here's Boots' actual prescription. But just because we're not willing to risk World War III doesn't mean that we can't effectively oppose Russian aggression. Look at U.S. support for the Afghan Mujahideen in the 1980s. Ukrainian troops are using missiles such as the American-made Stinger to shoot down Russian aircraft. Russia will never be able to claim air supremacy as long as the flow of Stingers continues. Eastern European NATO members should also provide Ukraine with Soviet fighter jets from their arsenal, while the United States should lead the way in embargoing Russian oil. So, I mean, aren't we we're already doing all of this, right? Like, I mean,
Oh yeah.
this is pretty much on the prescription table. But okay, so obviously using the example of the brave Mujahideen fighters, as Rambo 3 just called them. I know people are going to go to make the obvious joke here, which is like, okay, and then what happened? But I do want to shout out a Twitter account, Marina Oswald, that I think made a quite a good point about that, which is that you can't really own these people by pointing to 9/11 as the blowback from arming and supporting the Afghan Mujahideen during their war against Russia, because 9/11 was what these people wanted to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And they got everything they wanted out of 9/11. So shout out Marina, him or her, I don't know who they are, but a good account.
So-
And she's made the right point. It's not the own that people think it is, to say that, oh well, we got 9/11 out of us arming and supporting the Mujahideen because these people wanted 9/11 to happen.
And every place where some concentration of right-wing fascist psychos with guns is able to assert like territorial sovereignty, that's a chrysotunity for Washington. There's so many things you can do with that. It's a gift that keeps on giving. There's no downside.
Yeah, in 5 years, when there's like some awful act and you are called the same names that you are being called now for not wanting further escalation, for not wanting to take part in that conflict, yes, it will be because they have gotten what they've wanted.
Yeah, like imagine if like some fascist, not neo-Nazi rump government in part of what used to be Ukraine decides to start doing World War II style pogroms. That's another opportunity for America to assert its leadership role in the world.
Yeah, and anytime America can has the choice between like um, an independent, not even adversarial nation, but essentially like any kind of like nationalist project that is seeking to stand on its own and utilize its own resources as best they can, and trading as equal partners in a global market. We would much rather take a charnel house of several decades of just unparalleled slaughter.
Yes,
In like if that is the choice on the table, we will always go for the latter rather than the former.
absolutely.
Right. And going back to Marina's point, this has already happened. They've already
Mhm.
done this. They've already done this many years before everyone changed their abbeys to the Ukrainian flag. They will do nothing but get what they want for the most part because they've already done it.
So he goes here. Boot continues. Some are alarmed that if we don't get directly involved in fighting Russia, NATO states will be next. But Russia is so bogged down, it's impossible to imagine Putin attacking anyone else anytime soon. And while Putin is evil, he isn't suicidal. He is so eager to safeguard his own health that he makes his own aides sit at the end of a preposterously long table. He isn't going to attack NATO territory because the result would be a war he couldn't win and probably wouldn't survive. The US and European reaction to the Russian invasion has sent a clear signal to Putin and other despots such as Xi Jinping. Beware of the fury of aroused democracies. Don't undermine the effectiveness of our current policy with self sabotaging acts of overreach. Yeah, yeah. I mean, once again, just the number, if America is going to give advice to Putin here, don't sabotage yourself with acts of imperial overreach. You definitely don't want to do that.
I mean, they have no. They're gonna do it because we did it. Everyone's gonna do it. Everyone's gonna find themselves at the back against the wall, and then they're gonna try to throw the fucking dice and see if they can change the board conditions. And the only country that has a chance at doing that is, of course, China. But honestly, I don't know if that's a guaranteed thing either. But yeah, everyone's going to come to the limits of their power and then have to deal with the reality of just declining sovereignty in the face of a totally algorithmic global economic order that just doesn't need your fucking inputs.
And I mean, I don't know. Like, has America taken in any significant amount of refugees from Ukraine at the current moment,
I bet
or are
we
we just
will.
like,
I mean, a lot
yeah?
of European countries that were setting up fucking just a few months ago were setting up moats and fucking barbed wire fences and calling out the military to prevent refugees from entering are now just opening the doors. So I'm sure there'll be a similar change in attitude towards refugees that'll coincidentally occur here.
Yeah, particularly interesting to watch Poland, who have
Yeah.
yeah,
They have
they
Lou Bega serenading the fucking border patrol like 3 months ago.
I mean, like, and they don't have a storied long friendship with Ukraine